Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Mullen After Dark. And due to daylight savings time, it is not dark here in Ohio. I can assure you of that. I know it's not dark where Rock is.
It's definitely not dark. It's not as dark as it is in the ACC offices for sure.
Absolutely. Mullen after dusk. Let's just call it after dusk. I want to thank everybody for coming in here. I know it's a Sunday night. I know everybody's still discombobulated from this time change. I know I am. But the nice thing about daylight savings time is it means the clock in my car is right half of the year. So,
you know what? And you and my wife would get along because that's a thing for her too.
And this is my half of the year where the clock is right. So,
I know two people.
It's a very good day here in Ohio as far as clock time goes. How are you doing, Rock and Rant?
I'm good. It feels like monumental shifts have happened since we talked on Monday, which is why we've had a monumental shift, but just the craziness and sort of digesting and getting past like the initial of what the ACC settlement is just begot like all of the rampant speculation, whether you're on the fast clock to you think it's happening next year or just the assumed implosion in 5 years. So this was definitely not a boring week if you're as obsessed as we are with all of these topics. So
it's a great point. Let me ask you, you're a Miami guy. You're probably one of the, I guess we'll call them the chosen teams. You're getting buku bucks from this new mediated resolution, whatever we want to call it. What are your thoughts? Do you think that Miami, Florida State, Clemson, the big three as they were, should stick around and reap the benefits of that settlement?
Well, it's a great question. I tend to be more on the era of siding like that. I don't think something's either happening in the next 90 days or it's not happening for a few years is like my gut. And the only reason why I would say I could see it being accelerated is it would make sense if you're the SEC and the Big Ten to try to accelerate anything to get like 5 teams into the CFP every year, right? And those decisions are happening in the next several months. So that would, of course, require your TV media partners to change up what they're doing and give you more money, or at least some additional money that doesn't at least take away from your existing members. If not, I think it kind of lingers a little bit longer. But I think that's also just the extent of, if you're Florida State, Miami, Clemson, I think you can afford to wait to 2030, but there are ramifications for that. Recruiting is harder if you're trying to compete for the same kids that the Big Ten and the SEC are getting, especially the big ones, if you wait that long. So you just have to be prepared for what that means and being able to miss out a little bit. So if you put a gun to my head, I think we're more towards the latter part of the time frame, just for a bunch of circumstances, maybe not the ability to write the check.
Okay.
What do you think as you're in the chosen seat?
Listen, I tend to agree with you. I don't think, and I know Greg and I disagree on this. Greg Pfluger, college football speaker around the corner. I don't know that North Carolina jumps as quickly as he thinks North Carolina jumps. I think North Carolina can afford to wait 2 years. See how they do in that new media deal with Bill Belichick as their coach. Reap some of the rewards, then say, okay, we're out in 2028 or 2029, and bounce from there. I mean, I don't see the rush. I get it. With the way this media deal is now shaped up for Miami, Florida State, and Clemson, there's no rush.
I think that, especially for Miami, Florida State, and Clemson, because the chips are already stacked in your favor. One, you're already in the top 3 5-year average slot. Florida State's, at 15%. Clemson's right behind there. Miami's a few slots behind, but was number 1 outside of Georgia Tech this past year, right? So I know it's not the thing that people are focusing on as much, but something tells me I wouldn't be surprised if a team that everyone would consider in the 4 to 5 most likely suspects to go to the Big 12 wasn't actually the first domino. Because somewhere, if you're in that 6 to 9 range in the media deal, you may or may not be losing money. You might be. But if you're also worried that there might not be a seat for you because they're only, if you think the Big 12 is only going to take 2 or 4, whoever thinks they're 3 or 5 might try to jump the line sooner than the 4 likely suspects for the SEC or Big Ten. That's, no inside information, of course. It's just like game theory for me.
That's a great point. But the big question would be, could those teams afford to pony up or generate from their boosters $165 million to exit the conference?
Yeah, I don't know whether Louisville could generate $165 million, but I kind of think they could probably figure out a way in partnership with Brett Yormark to generate $105 million. Or the reverse question is, can you afford, if Louisville's probably not the great example there, because I think that they would clearly be one of the first schools to get a Big 12 spot should they want to, or they would become the higher end of the ACC depending upon how that deal moves around media-wise. If your top brands leave, whether the deal gets cut, you'd still probably be in that same spot. But I think, can you afford not to do it either, right? If you don't want to be the last one, the next one in that never gets into one of those three, should everything implode, whether it's in 2026, 2031, whatever. So you might have to take a hit to make sure you don't take a permanent hit.
All right. Want to remind everybody, thank you for coming into Moen After Dark here on the College Football Mafia Network. I am, of course, your host, Moen, with my co-host, Rock and Rant. Want to let everybody know, today we had a big thing happen in the College Football Mafia family, and we hit our 200th member. 200 members
Right
in the College Football Mafia family. We debuted another custom emoji for the chat, and we are going to do something special for this 200 celebration. We don't know what it is yet, but we're going to do something special. So I just want to thank everybody who became a member, gifted memberships, all that good stuff. You've helped us out tremendously here at the College Football Mafia. Again, if you want to donate, gift a membership, become a member, you can do all those things by clicking the little cash icon. Yes, MBM with my favorite, and I can't pull it up because StreamYard is a butthead, but Utes O-Face. The Ute O-Face is now available in chat for members. So please enjoy that.
A spear into the ACC logo could be a good one to add.
Yeah, you're right. That might come too, but we've got to get, I think, 22 more members to get the next emote unlocked. So,
well, this is how we would get Florida State fans to do it, just to be able to use that emoji.
There you go. We'll do a Seminole spear through the ACC, maybe an ACC logo mauled by a Clemson Tiger, ACC logo demolished by a hurricane.
I got to give the credit. Clemson and Florida State both did a lot of damage, but Florida State more likely did the most damage because it was a more comprehensive lawsuit, right?
Well, and the fact is they got that ruling in Florida from their Supreme Court faster than
for sure. So I think they're both partners in crime, but one was more of the mastermind.
Okay,
so optically,
the Seminoles speared it, and it ran a little while, and then died, and then the Clemson Tiger came up and started eating on the carcass.
Oh yeah, it made sure that the dead was dead, or at least the iteration before it was reincarnated as a little cub.
Yeah,
the ACC does.
North Carolina Tar Heels and Miami Hurricanes were sitting in the Safari Jeep taking pictures. So I'm sure
in air conditioning with a latte.
I'm sure we can figure something out for an emoji, but if you guys have any ideas for emoji, by all means, drop it into the chat. We're going to start off. We're going to say hello to some people, and we're going to get to some more news that happened in college football. Ryan Willie, Evil Badger, right out the gate. Moen with Greg's talk about the Gophers beating the Buckeyes. Make a cheeseburger bet with Greg. On women's hockey, I might do that. Women's hockey, I would consider it. Men's hockey, I would not do it unless they were both playing in the championship game, because we all know the Minnesota Golden Gophers hockey team can't win championship. So, Big Lubbock is second. Good to see you, Big Lubbock. Do you think Arizona misses not saving daylight? I don't know. They probably got a shitload of daylight in Arizona. Probably more than they need. John Dry says, I hope soon we don't have it. Again, it's something I've always had, so it doesn't bother me.
I really could care less one way or the other. Do whatever everybody wants.
Yeah, it is pretty sweet in the fall when you get an extra hour on a weekend, though. That is pretty nice.
Right.
Yeah, it sucks in the spring getting taken away, but Daniel Gygax, just the facts with Dan Gygax. Good to see you, Dan. Bob Swanger, Mr. Penn State, says, good evening, CFM. Good to see you, Bob. Mr. Monkey says he's first, even though he clearly wasn't. Caleb Ramirez is here. He says, hi, everyone. Good to see you, Caleb Ramirez. Minnesota Seminoles. Haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for stopping by. Lets everybody know good evening.
I think the Seminoles, when it comes to this channel, Ramon, I apologize for interrupting, but it's kind of like Endgame. Like this, Hulk did the snap and everybody came back as soon as the settlement came out.
There you go.
Good news brings out the crowd again. So it's good to see everyone.
Michelle Weintraub is in the house too. Happy daylight savings time, everyone. I'm with you, Mo, and my clock in my car is now correct. See, there are dozens of us. Brock. There are dozens of us. RFR Mac, a Utah fan. Good to see you, RFR Mac. Also a valuable member. Good evening to all. Almighty Finn, what up, Mo? And when you coming to Indy? What up, Rock and Rant? Well, I think when Ohio State plays in the Big Ten championship game next season, I will probably be in Indy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where the NCAA wrestling tournament is this year. If it was in Indy, I'd probably go to that, but I think it's not in Indy this year. It's too far of a drive for me. But thanks for asking, Almighty Finn. I will certainly let you know when I'm heading that way. Daniel Gagak says, am I the only one that changes the clock in their car when the time changes?
You are not the only one, Daniel. I assure you, I change every freaking damn clock except for the one in that one specific vehicle. When I'm in that vehicle, I miss meetings at times because I don't check my phone and I look at the car.
David Ferguson, I think his comments for you. Candy canes not part of Big Three. Viewership way below Unconquered Knowles and Tigers.
Except for facts actually matter, and that's wrong. First of all, it's just wrong. It's wrong. Sorry. By the way, let me check. It's actually wrong. Miami is the third over the 5-year period, and last year was the second behind Georgia Tech, having 2 games with Florida State and Georgia that really racked up their ratings. So I don't know, man. You can get alternative facts, you can dunk all you want, but that's just actually not true.
Here we go. I'm going to bring it up just to show you. They are number 3, but they are trailing behind Florida State and Clemson over the last 5 years.
Miami was crappy for that time period, but last year the number 1 school was Georgia Tech, which was completely helped out by having the kickoff classic against Florida State. So Florida State gets credit for that, and that massive 7 or 8 overtime game against Georgia, along with a couple other good games, including Miami. So Georgia Tech was technically 1. Miami, I think, was $2.25 million for this past year. I think Clemson. I don't remember if Clemson or Florida State was 3rd or 4th this past year. I think it was Clemson and then Florida State, but I'm not 100% sure. It's a rolling 5-year average, so Florida State's always going to be in the top 3. There's almost nothing they could do, including going 2-10 again, to not be in the top 3 or 4.
Very good. Almighty Fid says FSU Miami Clemson needs big matchup every week. So yes, we need to leave the ACC. Nobody's doubting you need to leave the ACC. It's a matter of when you leave the ACC.
Come on, we got to be able to play Mercer like Alabama. Almighty Finn.
Almighty Finn follows that up. I think FSU leaves in 28. I could see it being closer 28, 29. MBM's in the house. As the ACC stands right now, there is no reason to join the Big 12. Not sure I could see the Big 12 striking first.
Listen, perhaps not, but what if Big 12 announces a private equity deal, I don't know, in the next few weeks that the ACC can't do because people assume their top brands are leaving in 4 or 5 years, and you're a school that's not in the top 4, and once the math is done, you're actually losing a little bit of media value, even though you're an attractive target for the Big 12, and Brett Yarmark pulls off something. I don't think it's a likely thing, but I think it's probably more likely than schools leaving in 2026, whoever they are.
Yeah, I just can't imagine them doing a private capital deal just to give all that money to get spring one team out of the ACC.
No, I just think if they happen to be doing a private equity deal, period,
Right.
there could be contingencies in the private equity deal that allow an ability to attract other teams that, you know, a partner might know. Just like there was pro rata things within the SEC deal with ESPN or, you know, Big Ten with the various partners.
Well, we shall see. That deal is supposed to be on the precipice of being completed, so we shall see. Stormy Cyclones here. I think the Big Ten and SEC on offer a half share if they leave now, a full share at next media deal, depending on their mood. Now, the SEC can actually add them at a full media share right now.
They can. And the thing is, I don't even think the Big Ten would need to offer Florida State, Miami, or Clemson a half share right now. I think as long as those schools were at least at where they were or would be in the current ACC, potentially even before the new brand media split, there's rationales of doing it sooner versus later that could pay off itself in another way, especially with the Big Ten. You know, like if you lose $25 million in media rights, but you gain $75 million in grants and stuff from being in the Big Ten, at the top level, the school's probably pretty happy.
Right. Joaquin Morales is in the house. He says, "Hey, Mo and Rock and Rant and College Football Mafia fan, don't forget to smash that like button." Thank you, Joaquin. That's right. You can always smash that like button, give us a share, give us a comment in the comment sections. Those things all help us out tremendously, and they don't cost you a dime. So please consider doing that. All right. We'll get back to comments. I promise. We might even do open lines. I think we cleared out some of our friends, so we might do open lines as well. But I do want to get to some more news that broke today. Eddie George, former Heisman Trophy winner, former leading rusher, or still he's the franchise leading rusher for the Tennessee Titans. Former coach at Tennessee State, took them to the FCS playoffs this year. He has accepted the head coaching position. He's coming back to Ohio to coach the Bowling Green Falcons. What do you think about this? This is another player turned coach. What do you think?
Look, I think it's a really good move. Good move, right? He's not as dramatic and celebrity filled as Deion Sanders is, but he has followed a similar path, right? Of going to an HSBU and then it's moving up into the MAC here. So it's an interesting move for him. He's already proven it on the field at a lower level. I actually forgot that Bowling Green's job hadn't been filled during the coaching carousel periods earlier.
Well, he was just terminated or left not too long ago. It was like a week and a half ago.
So I missed that, which is also, I guess, a story that I just don't know the background on to understand like why that decision was delayed so late. But I don't necessarily think that they wound up having to settle. I think they actually got a really good guy with some name power that's proven it on the field with less resources than Bowling Green probably has, and we'll see what happens. But solid hire to me. What about you? What was your take on it?
Massive upgrade for ticket sales alone. Bringing him to a team in Ohio, former Ohio State Buckeye, former Heisman Trophy winner. People are going to pay to go see Eddie George. Other thing too, huge win for the MAC. Eddie George's first matching game is probably going to get pretty damn high ratings. Yeah, and I'd imagine ESPN is probably going to promote the hell out of it because they know Eddie George. Name value. I mean, the man went from college, Heisman Trophy winner, went to the NFL, got to a Super Bowl, didn't win a Super Bowl, got to a Super Bowl, leading rusher in Tennessee Titans history, franchise history, opened a restaurant, starred in Chicago, the play. And then he went and started coaching football at the FCS level at Tennessee State. So a true renaissance man, but again, bringing Eddie George to a team in Ohio, home run. I mean, look at this, 355,000 views as of 5 minutes ago when I took that. I don't think any Bowling Green announcement off of Bowling Green football has ever got anywhere close to that. So,
yeah, I wonder what would have happened had the progress of the coaching hire gone a little bit sooner, a little bit faster. Because if I'm not mistaken, MAC had just announced their football schedules within the last week or two before this happened. I wonder if they would have gotten a couple more, more prime slots on in terms of like MACtion or something.
Well, trust me, they can always flex the time on them. So they may not get the MACtion slots, but trust me, if the MAC was smart about it, they would just say, okay, we got to change things. But congratulations to Eddie George. Happy for him. Glad to see him moving up in the head coaching world. I'm sure someday he'll be a head coach in the Big Ten, and I'll have to face him. I won't like it. So, all right, let's get back to this. So many comments. Taylor Ramirez not saying they would, but if the SEC went to 24 schools, would Louisville be a candidate? Maybe if they went to 24. But I think if they're going to 24, I think they want new states, the new areas. They already got Louisville with the University of Kentucky.
Well, if you do that, but you think of the proximity, where would you go though? Like if you get to 24, you can make an assumption that you took UNC in Virginia. Maybe you had to take NC State because you had to take NC State, right? So that gets you up to 19. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, you got Clemson and Florida State. ESPN wouldn't let them go. Now you're at 21. It's easy to sit there and go, okay, let's get Kansas. That's 22, right? New state. You got three new states now. You got Virginia, North Carolina, and Kansas. But if you're trying to maintain that footprint of the states all touching each other, where does 23 and 24 come from if it's not Louisville?
Boy, you're probably right. I just
Tech
can't.
Probably not going to be one.
Probably not Georgia Tech. I think Georgia would block that. But yeah, probably Louisville and Virginia Tech would be your next recognizable name brands that you could pull in there for 24. But I don't see the SEC going to 24.
Yeah, we're just playing it out just for the pure speculation. But like if you even go down that road, so you're okay to get two schools in Kentucky and Virginia, but not two schools, including an AAU school in Georgia, which is a bigger population state than either of them.
Yeah. We'll see how it shakes out. Again, I don't think that's.
I think it's bigger than Virginia. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make any predictions on how it shakes out, but
yeah,
I just generally don't think that they can go to 24. Nathan Campbell says, Moen, do you know if Texas Tech is working on any status? I know that everybody right now is pouring money into their programs so that they can be the most attractive candidate they can be in the coming years. Tempest wants a tomahawk into the ACC logo.
Another viable option.
Brett Taylor, a member. Thank you for stopping in, Brett. I am assuming several ACC teams, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, and Georgia Tech, SEC Big, several others with the Big 12 are talking to other conferences and developing timeline conditions for leaving. Yeah, I think everybody's talking. Yeah, they were talking in secret before. Now they're right out in the open.
I mean, do you think there's a world where we're all high and none of this is going to happen and the conferences are pretty cool pending the obvious of a Big Ten would always take Notre Dame and therefore somebody would go with them?
Well, I'll tell you what, I live in a world where I'm always high, but that
was different. And that even predated legalization in Ohio. So,
I've got 5 members coming in here from MBM Shootout in Stillwater. Gifted 5 more memberships to the College Football Mafia. We're now at 205. Thank you, MBM. JJ75, Grillmaster, Shorts All Year, Kadu, Tom Dubay. You were all gifted memberships by our friend the Cowpoke, MBM. Make sure you give him a thanks in the chat. If you're watching us on demand, you're not in the live chat, drop that comment. Thank that man for giving you that membership. Enjoy those membership perks, including the use of the emojis in chat and access to our private library of members-only videos, including Wild Ute University. And I believe Ute's working on one now for expansion targets of the ACC. And if you did receive a gifted one, why don't you pay that forward? Make you feel good. We believe in karma here, and it all works out. I want to thank you again, MBM. Let's see if we got a media asset we can throw up here for you. Let's have a little whiskey.
Shit, I don't even.
Let's go get drunk.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if Ute surprises us.
Cheers to you, MBM.
Thank you, MBM.
You know, the downside, I have a feeling Crown Royal is going to be a little more expensive or harder to come by. I need to get to the liquor store and just buy a case.
Well, just make sure you pick which day, because some days it will and some days it won't.
Well, that's true.
Apparently.
Well, no, in my liquor store, it'll be any chance they do to gouge you, they will gouge you. But thank you again, MBM, for those gifted memberships. It is much appreciated, sir. All right, let me find out where it was at. 7:30. Okay. I am going to go ahead and put the link out in the chat. We covered all the big news today. Eddie George, that was pretty much the only thing college football wise. So I'm going to put this out here. Anybody wants to join us, give us your opinion, talk about anything you want college football, you can certainly do that. Click on that link and we will add you. And you don't have to worry about having your camera on or not. We put the magic screen of Mo and Tection up so nobody will see your camera. Almighty Finn says, Mo, you not coming for the Big Ten basketball tournament? Hell no. From Ohio State. I don't have any delusions that Ohio State's going to win that one. Mo, do you know if Texas Tech is working on AAU status? I'm sure they are. I'm sure lots of people are. Yeah. What the dog said. All right. Daniel Gygax, you are on the air, sir.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
So I'm wondering who's going to be the first to jump. Is it going to be a Florida State? Is it going to be a Clemson, UNC? I mean, maybe Louisville says, forget it. We don't want to. We're sick of making this little amount of money. It's going to be interesting.
Well, who do you think?
UNC.
Okay. How soon?
Well, I'm thinking, March. I'm thinking this summer. When this summer, I don't know. But I know that I can't remember if it's August 1st or August 15th. You have to declare that you're leaving the conference on one of those two dates to get out by the next year.
Yes.
Correct. I believe it's you're right. It's one of those 2 days. I think it's August 1st, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was. I'm thinking this summer. But UNC is going to have Calamoni.
Carolina Money, please.
Carolina Money. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've trademarked that. So if anybody else goes around using Carolina Money,
But yeah,
well, let me ask you, where do you think they land, Daniel?
I see the SEC, and let me explain my thinking on this. The SEC wants to get into North Carolina fairly bad. they might come up with a way to help float that 160 some $1 million exit fee, help them out with that money. They'll end up getting blank, blank, blank amount, let's say a half share for the next 10 years, but that's still going to be more money than that you make off that half share than what you'll make off of the ACC.
Well, you know, the SEC can actually offer them a full share right now. They do have pro rata with ESPN.
They
But
do.
You think they're going to basically tax them
Yes.
and say, we'll give you some money, but part of it we're going to keep holding. We're going to give you basically a 0% interest loan, and we're going to
Yes.
hold back earnings until we get paid in full.
Yeah. WVU and TCU, whenever they joined the Big 12 as a part of the exit fee, and it was like $10 million in change to the Big East, even though TCU never played a single game in the Big East, they still had to pay the exit fee. The Big 12 floated them part of that $10 million, and they had to pay it back over the next, I think it was 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, Rutgers and Maryland did something similar
Yes.
when they joined the Big Ten.
Rutgers had to do the same thing. Maryland, I can't remember the full deal with Maryland with the ACC. I know that the Big Ten did pay part of that exit fee, and Rutgers. I remember with Rutgers, they financed all that through the Big Ten for the exit fee.
Yes, and they used it for stadium renovations in both cases.
Yes,
but they did pay it back. They're now full share members. So let me ask you a question. You brought it up, Carolina money. How much do you think UNC is going to have to pay North Carolina State every single year? Should they separate the backpack?
I would say somewhere probably in the $10 million range per year. But that's
isn't Cal UCLA somewhere between 7 and 10?
It is. I thought it was $10 million. No, wait a second. The first couple of years, it's like $7 million, then it goes to $10 million in, I want to say 28, 29, something like that. I can't remember the exact year, but $7 million the first couple of years.
Okay. Well, I put a poll in chat, guys. I put the four most popular: UNC, Florida State, Miami, and Clemson. Who jumps first? Go ahead and get your vote in there. I'm going to let you know. We're going to let that run a little longer. Right now, Florida State is running away with it, 50% of the vote. So there must be a lot of Seminole fans with itchy trigger fingers out there in the chat because they want out of the ACC immediately.
Now, here's the thing. Florida State and Clemson, everybody knows that they're about right. They're the ones that were in court saying that we want to go. If UNC leaves the ACC, that ACC is done. That right there says a founding member has no faith in that conference anymore.
Absolutely right. And I want to ask you one more question, Daniel, and then I'll let you go. UNC, do you think UNC has the pull to get UVA into whatever conference they choose?
I do not believe that they have the pull for UVA. UVA's interesting because UVA, they've got all the academics and stuff like that. But if you want the big team out of the Commonwealth of Virginia, it's Virginia Tech.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But Virginia, old money, very old money. One of the first universities in the Americas. Access to the DC, the Beltway area.
Yes.
Could be huge. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but that is a big, big recruiting ground.
Yes.
That Maryland, DC, Baltimore, all the schools in that kind of area. There's been some monsters that come out of there. Chase Young came out of there. Just big, big, fast dudes. I'm not saying it's anything like South Florida Rock and Rant. Don't get me wrong.
I didn't think you were. I understand.
I'm just saying it is a rich recruiting ground. So that's why in what I figured up and put on Twitter, I put UVA in the Big Ten because I think the Big Ten would take it purely to defend that recruiting territory and that media market.
Plus, I can't remember exactly what it was. I do remember when you did his analysis or pulled the numbers together that Virginia Tech had a really, besides having a mediocre year on the field, they had a terrible year TV ratings the last year or two. I don't remember what Virginia's were because I just haven't really focused on it as much because Virginia Tech was more surprising to me because I consider them to be a really big football brand in the ACC and generally with a great history, whereas Virginia I don't. But I think it's an important year for Virginia Tech just to reestablish themselves in football with their coach this year, the way that a lot of us think they should be.
Exactly.
All right, Dan, you have anything else for us?
Nope. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye. And let me get the screen up. No detection. There we go. All right, get back to your comments again. Let me put that at the top. I don't know why I didn't pin that to the top last time. I'm going to go ahead and put that link back in chat and pin it to the top if anybody wants to join. Give your comments. You can talk about anything you want in college football. We will listen. We may not agree, but we will listen. OPD Don, good to see you, OP. Louisville most likely doesn't want to have another West Virginia situation, so I bet they are banging on the door. The clock is ticking. I don't think Louisville has to worry about that. I think they're probably the number one target for the Big 12.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are other schools that are number one target, but they're definitely the number one realistic target for sure. Others are circumstantial. Anything could happen. Nothing would surprise me in college football realignment at this point.
Daniel Geiger says this year's wrestling final was in Philly. Yeah, that's probably why I didn't get tickets. I hate Philly.
The best matches will be fights in the crowd.
That's right. 2026 in Cleveland. So I will probably go to the finals in Cleveland, just as long as they don't get Gable Stevenson another year in his college career to add to the 7 years he's apparently wrestled in college. My point, Moan, it's only a big two. You. I think he's talking about Florida State and Clemson. Mr. Monkey reminds us that playing Notre Dame is also a boost. That's right. Notre Dame entered into an agreement. They get to pretty much dictate their entire ACC schedule.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But that said, if you look at the ratings that Moen pulled up, it's not like those schools who were in the top three spots weren't already in the top three spots despite not necessarily playing Notre Dame regularly. There's a pretty big gap from the 3 to the 4 and 5 that Notre Dame being regularly on all of their schedules will certainly accelerate.
Yeah, and that Stanford number is a little confusing. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why Stanford is that high. I'm trying to remember the last time they had a good season. And I can't.
Yeah.
I think Christian McCaffrey was the running back the last time they had a good season. But there you have it. Joaquin Morales has a great show. Off to spend time with Mama. Go Devils. Forks up, forks up, forks up. Thank you for joining us, Joaquin Morales. MBM says Bowling Green gave Nittany Lions all they wanted. You're absolutely right.
Yes, they did.
They took them into the second half. MAC teams are not anything to be toyed with. They can catch you. Just ask Notre Dame. They lost to a MAC team. Almighty Fences, congrats to Eddie George. I agree. I think that's a great hire. Bob Swanger says they also did it to Texas A&M. Maybe. I don't watch Texas A&M games, so I don't remember those easily off the top of my head. Eddie about to start stealing player from Ohio State. I would actually be more worried if I was a Cincinnati, a Kentucky, Michigan State. Some of those schools that pick up the Ohio kids that Ohio State passes on, I think that's going to be the more telling test for them. but we'll see. All right, Stormy Cyclone, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm good. Then we finally got some decent weather here.
Now you
How
got
about
lots
you
of
guys?
sunshine too.
Oh, it's gorgeous today, man.
Yeah, I think tomorrow's supposed to be really nice too. It's just nice to see all the snow after what we just went through and go away.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
So-
72 here on Thursday.
Are you guys that far behind? I mean, I think it's supposed to be 70 tomorrow and it's supposed to cool down Tuesday, like here in Iowa. It's hard to believe
Well,
it takes that long to get there.
It takes a while to reach us. I will let you know in Ohio, everybody had to take their car to the car wash. Apparently, there was a big dust storm in Texas and Oklahoma, and it decided to carry all the dust and shit all over Ohio. So everybody's cars were covered in dust. Everybody walked outside and said, "Where did all this dust come from?" And yeah, meteorologists said, "Hey, this is from a big dust storm out in Texas and Oklahoma." So
my question for you guys, I guess I'm kind of already wore out about this realignment talk already. I don't know. It's been going on for so long. And then this news with the ACC, they can depart by 2030 for this figure and la da 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 da, whatever. But do you think it's possible that Fox and ESPN and being they are like part, half and half in the Big 12, and they are, I guess you'd have to put CBS and NBC and them on board on the Big 10, but they just say, here's what we're going to, would you guys consider doing this? The SEC, you take such and such, the Big 10, you can have this, and the Big 12, you can have this, and let's just get it done. Do you think that could possibly happen?
It's illegal,
Before, like in the Big 12's case, like we'll give you the full share for these teams, but we're not going to give you any more. If you want any more, you're going to have to go this private equity route, and you know what I mean, that type of deal until the next media deal. And let's just get this done, is what I'm saying.
I mean, directly they can't. Technically, officially, that would be
Monopolizing. You mean that type of thing?
Mo's favorite term is what? Market allocation.
it's market allocation. But the thing is, ESPN already paid the Big 12 for 4 additional teams.
That was all ESPN, right? That was
all ESPN. It wasn't anything.
But we never
Fox.
did get the back. We didn't get the back half from Fox, though.
Right. So I don't see ESPN offering the Big 12 anything right now.
No.
Honestly,
I mean, for the okay, go.
I was going to say, honestly, I don't believe that the Big 12 is going to be media partners with Fox or ESPN at the next media deal.
Until 2030, though, we don't have a choice. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying
I don't think they would invest any more into the Big 12, knowing that they don't have it guaranteed past 2030.
But I'm saying too, though, that I'm just wondering if they ain't going to have part of that, because if ESPN, they're going to, you know what I mean? They're going to lose like a lot of content with the Big 12. They're going to, you're going to see even SEC teams playing on odd nights and things like that too. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing like live TV. You know what I'm saying? I just think that they're going to still be involved with the Big 12 some shape or form. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't know how this all goes, but
I don't think if you're the Big 12, I don't think if you're the Big 12, you even want to be. If I was right now, the Big 12, the SEC is the favorite son, the ACC is the stepkid, and like the Big 12 is like ESPN's foster child that they have for a few years. The way they get treated and prioritized. So like I don't know, you know what ESPN wants to do. If I was Big 12 right now, I'd be thinking, how many schools can we do a series with Netflix on right now, and what can we do that gives Time Warner or CW, anyone has free airwaves and cable that moves outside of the ESPN deal, since ESPN already helped foster that. Here's a few games to you guys, TNT. Anything you can do to like build those partnerships up so that you get to 29-30. At the worst case, you have 1 or 2 other bidders in the room against ESPN. In the best case, you can get just as much distribution and reach and not be subject to being like the fourth in line for any of the slots. So, like, to me, it's less about being reactive to what ESPN wants. It's more about being proactive to what the Big 12 needs.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I just, you can just see it already. Even the basketball deal, like we used to get some real big time slots, and it's just like now the SEC is just up their game. It's like, oh yeah, they're there. I guess we better put them on. I hate to think what it's going to be like 5 years from now.
Yeah,
But
I mean, if you look at the ACC ratings that Moen kept pulling up before, they take the top whatever schools you want, top 4 or 5. You have to factor in, especially this last year, that the amount of time that any of those schools got onto ABC as opposed to ESPN and in the best time slots was very rare, right? So even when you got Nielsen rated games, you were not necessarily the primetime game on ABC. I think almost every single one of those went to the SEC during the season. Now, some of that's a product of a school or two being down in those games, a game like Florida State, Miami not being in that slot that in a normal year probably would be. But you're seeing it, like you just said, in basketball. Like, you can still be on that network and be promised X amount of exposure. But if you're not getting those prime slots, like, your ratings are by definition hurt. And then it's used against you when you come up for negotiation, even though you weren't the one choosing to be
right.
prime slots.
Right. Okay. Well, that's all. I can. I mean, even as bad as this is, I mean, if it wouldn't be for Duke this year, I mean, getting some major time slots. I mean, the ACC has not quite been at what it has been in the past, but I mean, they might not get much airtime at all. But Duke is kind of their savior this year in basketball, really. I mean, they are looking awesome. I mean, so. But anyway, I'll let you guys.
UNC is still the biggest college basketball brand. So
it is. It is. But they can't continue the way. They might not even make the tournament this year. I don't know. It's going to be. They're right on that bubble, So
yeah. If the three
anyway,
of us
I'll let you go.
People in chat, we might make the tournament ahead of most of the ACC.
Yeah. All right. I thank you guys for your time, and you guys stay safe. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
You bet. You too.
Got it. All right. I would just add the thing with the Big 12, more than anything else, is they need their own network. They need a Big 12 network. And that's the thing with the ESPN and SEC. They have the SEC network. They're basically married to the SEC. They have the ACC network too, but I don't know how long that's going to be around, especially when these teams start bolting. And then you have.
Do you think they need a network like?
I think they do. They need a dedicated network.
But do they need it to be on to get the carriage fees for however many years that still is a thing, which is probably multiple years, even if diminishing? Or do you think it can be as simple as like their own digital channel available on,
I don't think you can do it as a fast channel. Here's my thoughts. And look, TNT lost basketball, NBA basketball. We know they've been looking for other sports. They've got that entire channel out there, Turner Sports. There is fuck all on that channel. I have sat down and tried to watch it. There's nothing. There's nothing.
That's the former TV Land thing.
I think it was former Court TV that became True TV that became
True
something
TV.
Else.
Yeah, True TV. I think you're right.
Yeah, now it's Turner Sports. That right there, that's already on a bunch of cable systems. I say tell the Big 12, hey, let us be your partner. Let Time Warner be your partner. We'll put your games on. We'll give you the Turner Sports Network. We'll call it the Big 12 Network. The only time we'll really interrupt your programming is during March Madness, which they're probably not going to have a problem with that because that's going to boost the ratings for the Big 12 Network and get them better advertising dollars. But I think you need a network. It's good to have a partner that's in business with you.
Yeah, I think they need a network, but I think they need to also have, even if it's CW, somebody who's available for free as a network, right? Because you don't, in a cord cutting fee, like ACC has ABC theoretically if they can get a slot ahead of SEC. Big Ten's got 3 networks that they can be on. ACC has some coverage on CW, which is the 4th of those traditional networks, but
Yeah, it's tough. I know that CW has a deal with Oregon State and Washington State still. We have to see how that figures out here in the next coming year. I could see maybe licensing one game to CW a week, just saying, hey, you can get a primetime game a week. But I'd imagine if TNT's getting in there, they want to be all in.
And theoretically, Paramount and CBS, depending upon who buys them, they have more available time slots if they wanted to offer. But they would still have that one. They would still have that same slot they had historically as the SEC that has now become a Big Ten slot. If they wanted to have 2 or 3 windows a day on Saturday, they could. I don't know everything else they own property wise, but there's nothing that just jumps out to me that would preclude that should they have interest. Now, maybe they are totally fine with just being in college football to the degree they've been for 20 years, which was just like one game on Saturday.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, they're going to have to somebody's going to have to make an investment in the Big 12. Now, we know ESPN and Major League Baseball just parted ways. So ESPN does have money freed up, but I have a feeling if the SEC adds 4 more teams, I know that's a good portion of money that they're going to have to spend every year, especially towards the end of that media deal. So, or
if they add the 9th conference game and the negotiation happens,
that gets renegotiated and you pay them even more. And then the other thing with the CW is, if I'm not mistaken, their deal is actually with Nexstar. CW is a programming network that's owned by Time Warner, but the stations themselves are owned by Nexstar Media Group.
Yeah, they don't own. I don't know if Nexstar owns all of their locals, but I think they have a predominant share of their channels. And I know CW is not in 100% of U.S. homes. It's not the same coverage. So I'm just, it's probably not the ideal situation. I just mean that ideally, if you're the Big 12, you don't want to necessarily just have a TNT, TBS, Turner Sports deal. You'd like to have some over-the-air, especially in a world where you can get over-the-air digitally pretty easy without an antenna anymore. Just for the eyeballs, the exposure, and that matters, right? Even if it's not 100% coverage across the country.
The other thing I would bring up with Time Warner, they've been adding lots of sports to that Max package. So Big 12 could be easily on Max. You could just, the way cord cutting is going, there'd be less and less cable subscribers. You can just shift most of your programming over to Max, although I'm sure they'll increase the price of Max. I forgot to end that poll. All right, I'm going to end the poll here. We're going to see how that turned out. I'm pretty sure Florida State ran away with it.
I would think.
Yeah, if it'll pop the poll results here. Yeah, Florida State 53, North Carolina 36, Miami 7, Clemson only 1%. Only 1%.
I mean, the school that actually has the easiest path to do it because they just don't have to deal with any government is Miami, but it doesn't necessarily mean that makes Miami most likely.
Yeah, and they're going to have a landing spot and get everything figured out. I said this before, I'll say it again. I think everybody is making themselves a prettiest girl at the dance for 2029. Georgia Tech has invested a lot of money in their football program recently. Kansas is building a new stadium. I think Kansas could be in that same kind of boat. Lots of people doing lots of stuff, so we will have to see. Texas Tech is working on AAU status, so are lots of people. Florida State and I believe Clemson are doing the same.
I mean, most of the major universities that are in these P4 conferences, I would say their presidents on the academic side have aspirations for AAU status. Most of them are research universities, even if they're younger, right? Some of these schools have a 200-year head start on people, but for most of the schools, like that would be aspirational for them. Now, how much they're willing to do to really make it happen, that's a totally different question.
Absolutely. Minnesota Seminoles, I would love to see Chief O'Scalar write out on Renegade and stick the spear and the ACC logo on the field. I don't know if that's going to happen.
I think that would be wildly entertaining, and I would love to see it, but it's probably not part of Moen's make yourself the prettiest girl on the field. Hey, Big Ten.
Listen, I think
Come
it's like a
swipe the right
divorce.
direction on us.
It's like a divorced couple. You don't fight in front of the kids, you know. MBM says Crown was actually his first string. Congratulations, MBM. You made a fine selection on a first drink. My personal favorite. I actually started on Tennessee and Kentucky whiskey. Made the switch to Canadian whiskey as I got older and smarter. Nathan Campbell says GT. I just did a GT. There you go. John
second.
Dry cheers us with his beer. Thank you, John. Opie Didon reminds us it's August 15th to get out of the ACC for the next year. My money is on FSU. They started the ruckus with litigation. No reason to dial it back now unless unequal revenue distribution is pretty significant. We'll see. Like I said, they've got 1 year under it. Might as well just see what happens.
Yeah, and when we look at that analysis on the media distribution thing, the one part we're not factoring in is about, I think it was 15 or 20% of the deal is related to basketball viewership, and UNC is going to over-index on that portion, so they might be higher right now in the uneven revenue distribution from the media side, despite how football did this past year.
Yeah, shockingly enough, I see North Carolina's only at 5% here. That's going to skyrocket, guys. I'm sorry. When Bill Belichick's there, they're going to get better time slots. They're going to get the curiosity factor. People are going to want to tune in and see how Bill Belichick acts on the sidelines with these college kids. I think UNC will be good for another year or two, but we'll see. They may jump.
It's a 5-year average. That's the problem. And their last year one is their lowest, right? So I think they're losing a high number, but they'll replace it theoretically with a high number with Bill, who might keep them even over the 5-year average. But the basketball portion isn't in here, right? And the whole split, the uneven revenue share is mostly football viewership, but it's also basketball viewership on a certain percentage. And UNC is always in the top one, if not, top two, but I think it's always almost number one.
Illini Ted. Fun story from X today. John Rothstein posted a Big Ten bracket that he took from an Illinois fan site. It had John Rothstein as a clown hidden in the banner. It was up for a while, but now deleted. You gotta love it. Gotta love it. Gotta watermark these things, people. Gotta watermark them.
Now that's next level trolling. You got to give it up for that one.
Congrats to the guy who pulled that off. Also, I believe SEC only adds 2 to offset the Oklahoma-Texas edition, so he thinks they're only going to 18. UNC grad, he's here. He says, "Go Heels."
Did anybody ever bail? I would love to find out what really happened with UNC being announced for Hard Knocks and then 5 days later being not announced for Hard Knocks.
Bill Belichick. Listen, I think Bill Belichick's an asshole and he didn't want it on record. So, Stormy Cyclone hopes everyone stops at 20 team. Half the teams don't play each other the way it is. Completely understand where you're coming from, Stormy Cyclone. That's why I'd like to get up to 24 teams and play regional pods, get more traditional matchups. Could be fun.
I do not hope that things stop at 20 teams. 20 teams is very dangerous, selfishly.
That's very dangerous
Miami.
ground for Miami. Because listen, Notre Dame's getting at least one team to come in with them, and it would probably be Stanford.
Well, you and I don't agree that Notre Dame's going to a conference until absolutely forced, and I think that means you're getting cut out of the playoff, which means that not till 6 years down the road when it comes up for anything. I personally don't think they're going to have a hard time scheduling. They may have a harder time, but not a really truly hard time. And if Big Ten went to 24 before then, and finally Notre Dame caved in, and Big Ten needed a 25th team, that no matter what problems that presented, they would probably figure it out.
5 divisions of 5. No, I don't like it. Steel Austin, UNC is going to have to stuff that Wolfpack backpack with cash each year. Opie Didon thinks it would be $15 million payoff, little brother. I don't know that it'll be that high. I think we'll have to be surprised. Morris Simmons is here. Says hello, everyone. Go Knowles. And then FSU to big period. Put that in all caps just to emphasize that. We got about 15 more minutes here on the show, guys. If anything you want to get read, you'd have to make it a super chat. Got enough starred comments here. As always, we defer to member comments first. MBM says Virginia Tech is not the Virginia Tech of the Big East. That's right. Beamer retired. Sam 8911 SK SEC plan is to get all flagship schools in the South. If that's the case, they would definitely take UVA over Virginia Tech. Virginia is the flagship school of the state of Virginia. Antonio Baker, Florida State is going to the Big Ten. They want money, not hand-me-downs. Okay. I don't know how they would get hand-me-downs in either conference.
Yeah, the second part of that I don't necessarily know.
Tampa says, nope, I want the big as a Florida State fan. I'm sick of the ESPN SEC bullshit. As I've said before, I think the biggest issue for both Miami and Florida State is they're both in the state of Florida. It's, going to be hard. You're only going to get one team out of Florida. And if, there's two teams out there, it's essentially a buyer's market at that point. As long as that's still the case, they can leverage somebody.
But there are two teams that are in the top 20. If you're trying to get matchups and you're trying to get bigger deals down the road, take out the states and you just go, what are the top 24, 25 brands in college football? They're both in there, even with down years, just the numbers. So, like, if you're thinking about states and you're thinking about carriage fees, it's one thing. If you're thinking about who's going to give us the name power games that can make all of our schedules already better, regardless of whether we're doubling down, in a world where you have Indiana and Purdue in Indiana and Miami has more population than the state. I mean, it just depends upon how people look at it ultimately. And it might just be exactly what you're saying. I don't doubt that for a second. But I think that's a little bit short-sighted. Like every conference should try to get as many of the top brands as they can in there and then pit them against each other. And that's how your TV media deals go up better and you give better things to your alumni wherever they live, even if you don't want to fly into Tallahassee.
Listen, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think with two schools there, as long as it's an open market, they can basically get the best deal possible to take whoever. Whether it's Florida State goes to the Big Ten or Miami goes to the Big Ten. I don't think they get them both. I don't think the SEC is going to allow it. But that's just my opinion.
Of course. It's all speculation. None of us know.
Morris Simmons
Genetics knows. I'm sorry. Genetics actually knows.
That's right. Genetics 56 knows all. I'm in Tallahassee and everything here is pointing to big. Okay. CFB rivalries. Good to see it. Seems like ESPN SEC have always disrespected and talked down to Florida State and Miami. No doubt about that. They're not SEC. SEC is the favorite child of ESPN. The ACC is, for lack of a better term, the redheaded stepchild. Caleb Ramirez says, could Notre Dame jump first because the writing was on the wall? And if they did, how would that change realignment? If Notre Dame jumped to the Big Ten, first thing it's going to do is it's going to make Oregon and Washington whole. They would get full memberships at that point. And then they would have room for, I believe, 2 more full memberships based off of, without anybody losing money. They would have 2 more full memberships. But I don't know what the fee is going to be for Notre Dame to exit the ACC. I don't think it's $165 million.
It's a portion. I think it's probably safe to guess it's like 80% of that. It's, like I would just know without us knowing anything, if we just take the math on how much of the overall deals are football versus Actually, maybe not 80%. Sorry, I meant to say like the remainder of that, like 25%, 25% of the deal would be what I think, because so much football and they're not in the football portion of it, right? And the rest of the
Right.
media
I
deal is
think
20 to 25% plus like a portion of their exit fee.
Yeah, I think what it is, it's Olympic sports through whatever that period is, 2036. But I don't know if that period's now been. I don't know. And then you've got the people who say if Notre Dame joins a football conference as a member, it has to be the ACC. It's in the contract.
Right.
Well, we just learned for one thing, the ACC contracts aren't infallible. They are not ironclad.
They're meant to be settled out of court.
They are meant to be settled out of court. And the one thing Notre Dame does produce is a lot of damn good lawyers. So, but yeah, I think if Notre Dame jumped, I think it would be a linchpin and everything would collapse in the ACC. Then everybody would be getting out as soon as possible.
And in that case, then you have a realistic of, we're not paying anything. We're voting the conference out of existence, right? Because you just need 9 or 10.
CFB Rivalry says, I'm excited to see what Eddie George does at Bowling Green. So am I. I am curious. It'll certainly make Maction a little more fun. Morris Simmons says, big and SEC is not ACC. Notre Dame can play games with the ACC. They could, but you've got to remember, Morris, Notre Dame's media deal with NBC is contingent upon the ratings and the matchups they can provide. An ACC without Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, possibly Virginia, possibly Georgia Tech, possibly Louisville, Bolton to the Big 12. It's not a great lineup for Notre Dame. Not a great lineup. Tom Dubay, new member. It'd be interesting to see the actual ACC TV revenue calculation for the reallocation that was agreed to, i.e., is it football 80% and basketball 20%? Great question. And I think we might actually get the answer to that, because Florida State and Clemson are both public universities, and I believe that could be found out with a FOIA request.
Yeah, I think if you're just ballparking it right now, you just do like the good, better, best zone, and you do one version where it's 85-15, 80-20, 75-25, somewhere around there. You're in close enough. The rest of the sports together probably don't even come up to 1 or 2%. Maybe the ACC for baseball, you get a little bit, but I think collectively probably still doesn't, because they're just not, it's just they have some pretty good attendance, but I don't really think that they're drawing on TV to that degree that it is anything other than a rounding error.
Almighty Fences, I just went out of the ACC first. Then Morris Simmons, correct Simmons, says all Knowles went out of the ACC. Steel Austin says realignment never sleeps, and when it does, it snores. Florida State didn't go through all this for SEC ESPN. MBM says that's probably what ESPN told Yermark. Get capital, bring these schools in once the ACC is free game. Could be. Could be that Turner Broadcasting might have also told him that.
I think ESPN would say something like, Brett, you should get capital. You should be ready to be opportunistic, is the words they would use. I don't think the 3-letter words, ACC would be mentioned in there unless there was no lawyers in the room.
Marky Crenshaw, Florida State to the Big Ten. That's what everything's pointing to. Double the research last couple of years and should have AAU within the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah, we're going to see how that works out for Florida State, because Big Ten's got 17 voting members on the AAU. So if they get it, they're going to have to get it with Big 12 or with Big Ten support. Also, you've got a few AAU members in the SEC. They'll have to back you as well. So we'll see how that works out. I don't know if anybody's going to try a blocking pattern. I don't know if Stanford and Notre Dame are going to come together and try and block it, but we shall see. AAU, it's not really about what you know. It's about who you know. And there are people that have more influence than others. Any Nebraska fan will tell you that. NBM says we tried. Longhorn Network took that option. Yeah. And now everything's on ESPN Plus for the Big 12, and it's awful. Let me try and get through here. Town Hawk, Jayhawk Squawk. Lots of states for Big 12 network carriage fee rights. Yeah, and if you could do a deal with Turner and they just give you Turner Sports and turn it into the Big 12 network, you ain't got to worry about getting added to any cable packages. That is already on so many standard cable packages.
Right. Like starting up a new network from scratch is a really hard thing to do in cable world right now. Like you're not getting the benefit of the doubt carriage rates from the big cable providers, to if they have a school in your state or not. Like just getting on those systems would be difficult now.
Yeah, and speaking of private capital with the Big 12, they might be using that private capital to build production studios. That was a big part of the Big 10 network, a big part of the PAC network too. Building production studios on campus, that way you can produce your own games and upload them to the satellite feed.
Multiple millions per school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely is. But it's an investment in yourself, and it's not a bad investment like the PAC did. You actually have a partner that is fully behind you and wants to see you do well. Steel Austin has a differing opinion. He believes Florida State is more likely going to the SEC than the Big Ten. NBM reminds us ESPN freed up over $500 million from MLB. John drives with you. He likes TNT and the CW. There are going to be some major surprises of those who are not going to accept in the Power 2. I'm not sure. You might want to clarify that, Morris, that the Power 2 is not going to accept them or they're going to refuse the Power 2 invite.
I think he thinks the former.
No, he's here. You will not get fined, Miami Flow, I promise. He reminds everybody to hit the like button. Thanks for stopping in, Miami Flow. It's much appreciated. Sorry, that wasn't very suspenseful. I was going to actually give you the...
I'm a bad man. You hear me?
Thanks for stopping by, Miami Flow. Catch Miami Flow. If you're not subscribed to Miami Flow's channel, Rock does a show there every Thursday at 9 p.m. East, I believe.
Correct. And Flo's got a few other things that are a little bit more Miami focused. The Thursday night show is pretty national.
The Thursday night show, College Football Express, hosted by Rock and Rant. Definitely something you should check out. Go to @Miami Flow. I believe that's his channel. Or it's @Flow Miami. I'm not sure.
@Miami Flow. You got it right the first time.
Okay. Morris Simmons says big logo on Bobby Bowden Field.
Look, you can make an argument that ESPN did a little bit of kissing back, right, by pressuring the ACC to do something to settle or not possibly renewing. Even if we haven't officially heard that, I think anyone with half a brain knows that the sequence was there for a reason. But I'm not going to tell Florida State fans to not be pissed at ESPN because you have every right to.
Absolutely. Thank you, OBD Don, on the date correction. I couldn't remember it was the 1st or the 15th. I believe Elvis Presley died on August 15th.
No, it's going to be awesome one day, Moen, when none of us actually go, like, I have a pretty good idea when the date to leave a conference date is, but I can't remember if it's the 1st or the 15th.
It will be nice when conference realignment ends, but listen, brave new world, brave new world. The TV rating of Alabama versus Florida State 2025 will be high. I don't doubt that.
The hot seat bowl.
Yeah, that's
Kalen DeBoer, man.
Norvell is probably seat is a little warmer than Kalen DeBoer's at this point.
I think Kalen DeBoer's seat is pretty damn warm, despite it only being his second year. I do. I don't think Alabama's has the patience for it. They've seen sister schools do things in 2 or 3 years. He's got his OC now. If he doesn't pick the right quarterback, I don't know. I would not be surprised if they own. If they think it's a mistake, they'll own it faster. I think Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. He just might not be in the best situation, but we'll see. Interesting game for sure. One of the ones to look forward to next year.
Absolutely. Right. We got a super chat here from our friend Ryan Willie, the Evil Badger. And this one I can play the suspense music for. Numbskull News, another great channel to follow here on YouTube, believes that Miami will be the only addition to the Big Ten. So he thinks they're just going to go up to 19, I guess.
I know that I haven't seen that part, but I know Numbskull News is definitely not a Tar Heel believer. That part I definitely have gotten the message. I don't think he thinks that they're going anywhere. He doesn't get that why they're in demand based off of the TV rankings for football and history there. But admittedly, he says he knows that he's the outlier on that prognostication. It's entertaining as hell.
Oh, yeah. Numbskull News is hilarious. But I think Miami would have to have a travel partner, guys. I don't think that they would leave Miami out there on an island, much like they didn't do with USC, UCLA. They're probably going to have to get somebody down there to take with them. Now, is that Florida State? Is that Clemson? Is it Georgia Tech? Is it all four? Don't know. But we can.
If I had my way, Notre Dame aside, it would be Miami, Florida State, and Georgia Tech going together. That's what I would want. Selfishly.
As long as we get Georgia Tech in there, we are fine with it. Thank you, Evil Badger, for your $5 super chat and your continued generosity to the channel. It is appreciated, sir. I am glad you like that very evil Kaiju Badger. Let's get a couple more in here. Try and jump around here. Morris Simmons says, SEC don't want Miami. I tend to agree with you.
Don't care.
I think SEC is more interested in Florida State.
I don't want the SEC, so I'm cool. Doesn't bother me. I live in Los Angeles. I want Miami in the Big Ten. It's pretty freaking easy.
The Monty Show says sources say that sources can confirm that a Super League is likely, according to sources. I wish that was a real Monty Show. I would have some choice words for him, but alas, it is not. And we don't allow imitators on the show. I'm sorry, Monty Show. I'm so sorry. But if those guys ever want to come in here, open invitation. Open invitation. Come on in. We'll have some whiskey. We'll talk about it. Let's see. Almighty Finn says sources say ACC would keep Florida State till 2036. There have been a lot of receipts being posted this week, y'all.
Yes, there are a lot of receipts, but let's also not have revisionist history. There were also sources, a lot of sources, who said certain schools would be getting ready to start playing in the Big Ten in August, right? There's more on the other side, but I have a respect for everyone who can look at the bad takes on respective sides, even if they're weighted towards one other zone, right? This was not necessarily the expected outcome, but it is the timeline that people had wanted, right? And the theoretical possibility exists to get out sooner. And I hope it happens. I would like for it to happen soon. Even if it's a couple soon, just so everybody knows that the inevitable is really happening, and not be talking about completely speculating on the speculation for 5 years before we actually hear anything. It would be more fun if there's things that happen that you can start to think about what will that mean to those who have the invite? What will it mean to those who are trying to figure out the next spot? It's next level of interesting versus right now it's pure speculation across the board. Other than we now know the number.
Absolutely. Almighty Finn follows that up with sources say Notre Dame is the spoiled brat of college football. And sources said Notre Dame hasn't won anything since 1988. And you know what? That is absolutely factually accurate. Do you know who has a national championship more recently than Notre Dame?
Nebraska.
Well, that's true. But I was thinking
Georgia. Oh, that's right. Mo, did you happen to catch Josh Pate either live or one of the clips where he talked about who he thinks is the 5 most hated schools in college football are, and Notre Dame was not in the list of the top 5.
Well, then it wasn't a real list.
He
Let's
was
be honest.
saying, because more people rooted for Notre Dame over Ohio State this year, and nobody thinks that they're like pulling in the big numbers. Said they would be in the top 10, but top 5, he didn't think they were there anymore.
It's like a fight between Darth Vader and Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Everybody just had to pick the lesser poison. I'm not buying that Notre Dame is not one of the top 5 most hated teams. I mean, listen, I don't agree with most things Michigan fans say, but there's one thing we agree on, and that's Notre Dame sucks. So don't
definitely
tell
top
me
3 for me. Definitely top 3 for me.
Carrie Go Knoll says, how about a middle finger emoji? We got to get a few more memberships to get there. The newest one I added today is the sucking you dry cow udders for Wild You. And I know he's watching, so I might as well play it.
They've been sucking you, and sucking you, and you're sick of it. I get it.
Thank you for coming in here, Carrie Go Knoll. It is much appreciated, sir. Always good to see you.
The ACC is going to have this weird thing where the suckers become the suckies eventually. The people who are like milking the big brands will likely become the ones who are getting milked by the people that they have to backfill with.
Daniel Gygax says, if it wasn't for bad takes, I wouldn't have any takes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Bad takes, shit takes, cold takes, whatever it takes. We will do it. Almighty Finn reminds us Florida State has won 3 natties since Notre Dame has won their last. Miami's won 1, haven't they?
They've won 2 or 3 since Notre Dame lost their won their last one. Because Miami won 91 in 2001, so that's at least 2.
Okay.
Since Notre Dame.
Yeah, and I remember how the last game they played.
Yeah, technically 3, but in my opinion,
pass interference. Ryan Willie has gifted more memberships to the family.
All right, Ryan.
We're getting closer to that middle finger emote. You know what? Maybe we need to do a badger emote. A badger, a cougar, a Seminole emote. I'd like to be able to get one for all the teams in here. But until then, I'll just have to use this evil badger here for Ryan Willie. He does not like milk stuff. So let's play him a little Randy from South Park.
Arresting me for what? I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America. Huh? Isn't this America? I'm sorry. I thought this was America.
Randy had a few too many of Milwaukee's finest there, Ryan Willie, but we thank you for the gifted memberships to the family and all your generosity throughout our existence here on YouTube. You're a valued member, and we appreciate you. John Ingle, Go Black 45, Scavin, yes. Secret Agent, Suzanne Bajur were all gifted memberships by Ryan Willie. If you guys are in the chat, make sure you thank our friend the Evil Badger. If you're watching on demand, go ahead and drop a thank you in the comment section. I'm sure Ryan will see it. Ryan, I will get a cheeseburger bet with Greg Flugar one of these days, even if I have to fly up to Minnesota and force feed him that. I will get the jaws of life and ram that cheeseburger down his throat. It ain't natural, Ryan. It ain't natural.
I mean, Moen, it's literally worth it to say, Greg, if you win, we will fly you to a bowl game, all expenses paid, if they make a good game. And if you lose, all you got to do is eat a cheeseburger. Like, I think we could crowdsource that trip.
He's been doing a lot of smack talk about how the Golden Gophers are going to come in and beat Ohio State this year. I bet if I said, let's put a cheeseburger on the line, I bet he would back off of that bet real quick, Ryan.
I'm old enough to remember that NC State was going to win the ACC, and I'm only 9 months old.
That's true. Yeah, he was saying, he was giving SEC predictions last week, and I was writing them down saying, okay, I know who not to bet on now. OBD Don says the Godzilla of Badgers. Yes, it's a Badger Kaiju, the ultimate evil Badger. I just didn't have time this weekend, guys, obviously because of the time change, and I was watching wrestling all weekend, the Big Ten wrestling tournament. But we'll get some more media assets on here. We'll get some Florida State stuff. We'll get some Texas Tech stuff. And even for you, Opie, we'll add some LSU Go Tiger stuff. We'll end it with this, and then we'll say goodbye. Almighty Finn, Miami won 3 since Notre Dame won in 88, 89, 91, 01, and definitely 02. But a bogus call. I don't know how you're getting that.
It has to be true. Almighty Finn's an FSU guy. It has to be unbiased. It's unbiased.
Denied.
Sorry, come up here to Columbus sometime. We'll go to the Hall of Fame Cafe. We will get the booth underneath the pitcher. You can clearly see the Miami defender is basically sodomizing the Ohio State receiver before the ball even gets there. It was clear.
Hey, Almighty Finn, it's okay. Ohio State's just going to get a call from the Michigan game now, and Ohio State will say they revisionist won that game.
Well, all I know is since last time Miami won their national championship, Ohio State has 3.
I hear you, and you could dunk. I always enjoy the dunking of people who have never won a national title, though. I find it fascinating.
That's true. Oh, congratulations on Dan Lanning getting extended, too. Amazing you can get an extension after being number 1 in the playoffs and get your shit absolutely pushed in the first half.
I mean, but in the contract extension wars, I mean, that's like a distant second to, Wisconsin giving Luke an extension.
Well, I can't defend Luke anymore. But FF18 Buffs, go Buffs. Spring is here. 70 degrees in Denver today. Great show, boys. Thank you, Fergie. Much appreciated. Well, good news is if Wisconsin does fire Luke Fickell this season, I'm sure he'll have a job in the MAC next year. Get ready, Akron Zips. Luke Fickell might be in your future. All right, guys, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and hanging with us. We've been on a little longer than we usually do, but it was a fun show. Good time. We're going to do our last call segment as soon as I do this. There we go. All right. Last call, Rock. What do you want to say?
Just, looking forward to seeing what the illegal tampering period in the NFL does in the next, 12, 15 hours. See how crazy that goes. See whose schools, reproject, people become like, renovation projects, and then getting ready to see like how the draft pounds out for a lot of people as we get into that zone. Spring practice is underway, I think, basically for everybody minus the spring break here or there. So I think it would be interesting to hear what we start hearing as everybody goes into the prime part of telling lies season. So hopefully your lies at your school are going good as spring practice kicks into gear.
Yeah, they got rid of the spring game in Columbus, and I'm absolutely pissed about it. The only reason being the spring game is pretty much the only game that the majority of Ohio State fans can afford to go to. Whether they had players, go out there and do a simple scrimmage or do some drills, something to let the kids come in there and let the people go watch. I hate it.
Yeah, bad move. Hey, everybody, fan base wise, we need you to give us more money to get less access.
Yeah, just not good. Not good. All right, guys. My last call for tonight is buy it while you can get it. Crown Royal, buy it by the case. I'm stopping at the liquor store tomorrow.
Pretty soon, the only time you're going to see it is good. You're only going to see it.
Whiskey.
You'll just be seeing it on our show, but not in a bottle anytime soon. The way things are going.
Hey, man, I live close enough to Canada. I will drive up there and I will smuggle it back. If anybody doubts me, my name is John Smith, and I live in Michigan. Hear that, federal government? Michigan. All right, guys. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I do want to give a special shout outs to our friend MBM and Ryan Willie for both dropping 5-piece memberships. Those memberships help us out tremendously, guys. Gets everybody access to those Wild Ute University videos. Wild Ute's in the chat, updating people on his newest member-only video with cost analysis regarding the ACC. I also want to thank Ryan Willie for the $5 super chat. The Evil Badger came through clutch. For myself, for Rock and Rant, we will see you guys next Sunday. Thank you. Peace out.